Hey Dev team, welcome back to Flutter with Drag. We are going to continue with our app. We've got this two yellow areas and this green area to sort out. But while I was editing the last episode, I realized I'd missed a small part out of the graph, which we just need to fix. And that is right at the bottom of our graph painter class. We have an override, which is should repaint. And this tells Flutter whether we should be repainting this widget. And there are two times we need to repaint this widget. Once when the animation changes, and also if the data changes. So let's deal with the data changing. So this override takes in a custom painter. Well, our graph painter, is a painter. So we'll replace that there just so we have some auto completion. And we're passing into our graph painter right at the top of it, if you remember, we're passing in some data. And we're using that data, it's getting passed in, and it's required. We're using that data to draw the graph. So if the data that's being passed in is different to what was previously used, the data that was last used, then we need to repaint. And this old delegate is basically the old version of a graph painter that we're comparing it to. So what this does is the should repaint takes the current graph painter and the last time it was repainted, and we can make a comparison. We can say if data does not equal the old delegate.data, then that's going to return true. So if the data has changed, the new data doesn't equal the old data, so that's true, and so we're going to repaint. If the two sets of data are the same, it's not. So that will be a small optimization. And I said it also changes when the animation changes, but we don't need to do anything because we're automatically there calling repaint on changes of the animation. So that's already been taken care of. So that is now our graph area done. Let's move on to the top yellow bar, and that is the number of steps. So let's close our graph down and come into steps.dart and build this out. Well, this is fairly straightforward. We have a column. So let's take our container out first of all, and we'll put a column in which has two children, both of them are text. First one being the number of steps that have been done, and the second one just being a bit of text which says total steps. Semicolon at the end of our column, and that's it for the text. We just need to lay it out, style it a little bit. So for our number of steps, we're going to put a style of the text style, font size 33, and font weight of font weight W900. I think that looks okay. And for our total steps, we're also going to put a style in, and that's going to be a text style, font size of 11, font weight of font weight W500, and that's that. A bit of padding needed around the whole thing, so coming up to our column, refactor that, let's wrap that with a padding, and instead of all, we're going to change that to symmetric, and we're going to put some padding on the vertical of 20. Yep, I think that looks okay. And notice how, because our graph is in the expanded, it's automatically sorting itself out and automatically taking up the height it needs to take. just need a little bit of space now between the two numbers. And like I keep saying, there are loads of different ways of doing the same thing. Different thing, but giving the same-ish result. So we could come and wrap this text in a padding and put some padding above that total steps, or we could just change the height of that to 2, which effectively means that if the font size is 11, the height is going to be twice that. So normally the height would be 11, now it's going to be 22, and it just pushes those two apart. That's great, and that's it for the design. However, for our testing and for our demonstration purposes, I'm going to come up to the top of the build and I'm going to add in a bit of code that will give us a random number. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a string called steps, and we're going to make this a random number between 3,000 and 6,000. Now that doesn't exist. We need to create that. So let's come back to our helpers file that we created a while ago, and I'm going to create that function in here. So this function is going to return a number, and the function is going to be called rand_between, and it's going to take in a minimum number and a maximum number. Now we already know about Dart random. It's part of the Dart math class, and we know that we can return an integer and we can provide it with the max number, and that's fantastic if it works. So let's say we're putting in a minimum number of 5 and a max number of 10. So we can return the max, which is 10, but it can return any of the numbers in that range. So it can return 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and we want a minimum to be 10. So how do we get that to do that? Well, what we do is we take the max number and we subtract the minimum number from it. So now 10 minus 5 is 5, so it's going to give us here a number between 1 and 5. And then we just add on to the end of that the minimum number that we've just taken off there. So this is going to, let's say this produces the number 1, it's going to add on 5, which will give us the 6. And if this is 0, if this comes out as the random number of 0, then it's going to add on 5, which is the minimum number. So that will always give us the number we want in the range we want. Okay, so let's save that, come back, and we can now import that. Let me just check rand number, rand, I called it rand between, that's fine, we'll call it rand between. And we can import that from our helpers package. So that returns a number. We want it to be a string, so we can just put toString on the end, and that converts that number to a string. And instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, we can just put steps and save. Now we've got every time we refresh this page, we're going to have a random number showing up. But our design has a comma between the 4 and the rest, it's the thousandths separator. And so we need to put that in somehow. And again, there are a lot of ways of doing that. There are plenty of packages that allow to do that. But again, we're doing this particular app here with no extra packages. So we're going to have to write the code to do that. So let's come back to our helper function, and we're going to create another function which we're going to call format number. And the format number is going to take in an integer which we will call number, and it's going to return a string. It has to return a string because we're returning commas, and that has to a number can't have a comma, but a string can have a comma. Okay, so what are we going to return? Well, return number to string basically fulfills the criteria, but it doesn't do the formatting. But let's just save that for a second, come back to our steps, take out our toString here, and now we can call that function format number, and the number we want to place in is the random number that we've got. So this bit creates the random number, this bit then formats it. The format number returns a string, so we don't need to put toString on the other side. That will make no changes yet, but will allow us to come back here and do something here. Now, there are a lot of ways of doing this. We're going to use something called a regular expression, and this is a little bit beyond what I'm trying to do here, but I will sort of try and explain it. So let's create a regular expression. And the regular expression we're going to create looks like this. And I will try and explain what's going on in a second. We're going to, first of all, we want to find a, let me just write a random number here. Okay, we're going to be taking this number and we want to find the position where we can put a comma. Okay, now that position comes when you have a digit followed by 3 other digits. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for somewhere that has a digit followed by 3 other digits, and we know that's the point. So take this 8 here, that's a digit, but it's not followed by 3 other digits, so we don't want a comma there. So in our case, we want a comma after the 4. However, we also want a comma after the 7, because that's also a digit followed by 3 more digits or more. And that's what our regular expression, it's a sort of search pattern. So we can search for a digit by putting /d, that's searching for a digit. And then in curly braces, we can say search for a digit that is between 1 and 3 in length. So not the numeric value, but the length. So we're searching for 3 digits. We're searching for 1 digit, 2 digit, or 3 digits. This is the pattern. Okay. And we're going to put that inside brackets because that is a group that we're creating or looking for. The next thing we want to look for is then 3 more digits. So D, this time we're just putting a 3 in. So we're saying look forward 3 more digits. And again, I'm going to put that in a group by itself. So now we're looking for a pattern, take these commas out, that has 3 digits and then 1, 2, 3, or 1 or 2. And that's great, but we've got a problem because here we've got a group of 1, 2, or 3, with a digit in front of it. So currently, if we take that, then we could end up with a comma there, and that, as you can see, isn't correct. So we also need to have another search at the end, which is another digit, but it's not another digit, it's the inverse. Let's make this another group. So what we're saying here is find somewhere that has 1, 2 or 3 digits, followed by 3 digits, followed by nothing, no more digits. So in our example up here, that is the only place that satisfies that criteria, because that's the only place that has 1, 2 or 3 digits in front of 3 digits and nothing on the end. And those 3 digits will be part of this group, and those 3 digits will be part of this group. Okay, and that's fantastic. So what we can do is we can run this through a map, a string, like so. So we can take our number, we've already got it, take our number to string, and we can replace all the mapped text from, and we put in our regular expression there, so I'm going to cut it out of there and put it there. And let's just put some semicolons and commas in just to format this. So we're replacing all that's mapped. We're taking the string and we're going through, and if you read this here, it says replace all substrings that match from a computed string, and then it keeps going around essentially by removing all the things that it has matched and running the regular expression against the next part. So let's take our random number again, big number this time. So it's going to match this part and deal with it, then this part, deal with it, then this part, deal with it, then this part, deal with it. That's not a match because it's not a number with 3 after it, so it's not going to do anything there. So when we've got this match, okay, we'll put this, it's a match called M, we'll call it M. We're going to return, and this is just the string, we're going to return the first group of that match followed by a comma. So we're going to be returning the first group followed by a comma, which will give us the result. Now the problem is here that that is being matched and this is being matched. That doesn't really matter because it's nothing, but we don't want this to be a match, so we need to change this whole bit here to something that's called a forward lookup. So I'm going to wrap that in another set of brackets, and by using the regular expression question equals, what we're saying, this is a forward lookup, so it's not actually doing a match, it's not counting it as part of a match, it is just looking now for a 1, 2 or 3 digit number that is followed by a 3-digit number and only a 3-digit number, and that's not going to be a match, that's a forward lookup, that's just there to as a test. Regular expressions are quite complex, there's plenty of YouTube things on regular expressions and plenty of websites to explain that, but understanding and learning regular expressions is really useful. Okay, I'm going to save that now, and as you can see, as soon as I save that, we now have a comma in the right place. And we would, if we just override steps here by putting in a long number, in fact it's not a number, it is a number, and put that through our format number function, you can see that that hasn't worked. There we are. Sorry, my regular expression, I'm just missing that. Okay. And there we go, we've got all the commas in the right place. That's quite important. That's the quantifier. It basically says match one or more, and we weren't doing that. So yes, regular expressions, plenty of scope for typos and errors, but very useful. Okay, that's our helpers done. Let's take that test line out and return to our random numbers and continue on with the next part, which is this green bar. Okay, so this is our info bar that we've got now, and we've got three things that are the same in a row. So that tells us straight away that what we want is a row with children, and those children are something. And we're going to, because we're repeating it, we're going to create a new widget called not state, stats. That doesn't exist yet, so let's come down below that and create a new stateless widget called stats, and we can build this. Now, looking at our design, we can see we need to pass in 3 bits of information. All of them are strings. We're going to have the value of the stat, the unit of the stat, and the label of the stat. And we need to pass all of those in, and they're all going to be required. So let's just format this, set the all to required, and in our stats, let's set that up. So we've got a value of the first one. We'll just worry about the first one for now. 345. It's a string. The unit here is going to be kcal, and the label is going to be calories. Now we've got an error here. Stats is imported from both the widget stats and the info.dart. Okay, so now we've got 2 widgets called stats, and I've sort of done that deliberately to show you that while it's not always a good case or good to have widgets called the same, inevitably it does happen from time to time, especially when you're using packages. You might have written an app that has all sorts of packages in it, and then you install another package and that happens to have widgets of the same name. Well, we can fix that. Now, the stats that we're using, that creating now, is in the info.dart, and we don't need that stats. So here at the end of the import, we can put hide stats. And now the stats that's in this widget is hidden from here, but the stats coming out of this widget is available. And that will fix that error for us. Useful to know. Best to avoid the same names if you can. Right, what does our stats look like? Well, we have a column. They're not that complicated. We have a column, but we have an interesting thing here. If you look at the value and you look at the units, they are on the same line. Now we could put that into a row, or we could do something a little bit different. And we're going to do something a little bit different because we like looking at different ways of doing things. And the way we're going to look at this is useful for a number of reasons. So let's start with the basics. Let's start by putting our value as a text, and then on the next line we're going to put our label. So let's just put that in and take a look at that, and let's style that. So first of all, in our column we want our cross-axis alignment to be cross-axis alignment start, so it's all over on the left hand side, and as a column we also want to make sure that it takes up the minimum amount of size, so we're going to do main axis size min, and then let's style these. So the text value is going to be a style, text style, font size 20, font weight W900, I think. Yep, that looks about right. And I'm just going to copy that whole style and paste it after the label with the comma, and we're going to change this to a font size of 10 and a font weight of 500. Okay, that looks okay. Between the two we'll put in a sized box of height 6. I think that will give us enough space between the two. I think that looks okay. Yeah. Now, what do we do with this kcals bit that we're passing in? Well, we want that to appear right after this text. So as I say, we could put this text in a row and put them next to each other, or we could do this by changing this text into a rich text. And we can do that by wrapping that widget with a text.rich widget. Got a few errors, we'll fix that. First of all, a rich text needs something called a text span. It doesn't have a child. And we just can do that by changing text to text span. And a text span can't just take in a bit of text, we need to define that like so. So now we have a text span which has the same text and formatting that we had a minute ago, and it's inside a rich text. What does that do? Save it, no changes. But a text span itself can also have children. And as we know, we can take a number of children. So we can take another text span and we can set the text of that to be our unit. Let's save that, put a comma in and save that. And now you can see we've got our unit straight after. But this text span can take its own style. So we can put style, text style, and you can see by default it takes the style of its parent span, text span that it's in. So currently it's font size 20, font weight 900. So we just need to change anything we want to override, which in this case is both. We want to set the font size to 10 and the font weight to font weight.w500. And there we go. Now the reason text spans and rich text are so useful is we can also make that a link or all sorts of stuff. It's a useful tool. What about putting a bit of spacing between the number and the unit? Well, yep, we can do that. All we need to do is add in a text span. Again, there's a couple of ways we could do that. and the text is going to be a space. Each text span can have as many children as it needs. There's our space. So now we just need to come up to our row where we have our stats going in, and I'm just going to take that comma out, put it on one line and copy it twice, and we just need to put in the right values. 3.6 kilometers distance, 1.5 hours. Save that. We have our 3 boxes. In our row, then we just need to set the main axis alignment space round, and that's put it out. Now, why has it got a grey background? Well, this info box widget is inside our scaffold on our details.page, and by default that has the background color of that grey. We can come into the scaffold and set that to be color.white, and that'll just change that out. Right, now this yellow bit. So to do that, let's come to our stats.dart widget and let's start. Now, looking at this design, we've got a what looks like to be a column which has a row, and the row has the workout stats and that little icon, and then below that we have another row which has those stats in it, those sort of stats boxes. So let's start at the top and work our way down. We can get rid of this container and replace it first of all with a column, and that column has children, and the first thing is going to be it's not going to be text, it's going to be a row, and that row has children, and the first thing is going to be a bit of text which says workout stats, and the second thing is going to be an icon, and that's going to be icons pie chart icon rounded is the one. Pie chart rounded is the one I'm going with for now. Okay, now our emulator has gone ballistic, sort of. As you can see, now we've taken out that size padding or the size box that we had. The workout stats is now taking up a little room at the bottom, but that will sort itself out as we put more stuff into it, so I'm not going to worry about that. Let's format the text now, the workout stats. That needs a style, and that's going to be a text style with a font size of 14 and a font weight W800. Yeah, that looks okay. And then the icon is going to have a size of 15, and it's going to have a color of color 0xFF 3BC6FA. And if we save that, I think that looks okay. And between the text and the icon, we're going to put in a sized box with a width of 8. Yeah, that's okay. So underneath that row, we're going to put in a size box straight away, I think. Size box of 15, because we know we're going to want some spacing between this and the next bit. So let's put that in. And we're going to have now something that scrolls left and right, but you can see from the design it looks like it goes off the right hand side of the screen. So we're going to, well, we could do a list view builder again, but I'm going to say that there's always only the 3 items in it. And because that's fixed, what we're going to put in is a single child scroll view. And that has a child, and the child of that is going to be a row, and that row is where our children are going to go. Okay, so what do we want to do with this row? Well, we've got 3 boxes, and I'm going to separate this out. So let's create at the bottom of this page another widget, a stateless widget, which we will call infostat. Yeah, my naming is not always the best, but there we go. And this infostat is going to take, let's look at our design and work out everything it's going to need. Well, we're going to need an icon, so we'll put in icon data and we'll call that icon. It's going to need the color of the icon, so a final color, we'll call that icon color. It's going to need another color for the icon background, so we'll call that icon background. We're going to need a string, so a final string, which we'll call the time, and 2 more strings, one which we'll call label, and the other which we'll call value. And all of those are going to be required. So on our infostat, we will add the final fields, put a comma at the end to format it, middle mouse button, drag down, and required for all of them. Okay, so that's our infostat made up. So how is it going to actually return? Well, they look like boxes to me, so we're going to put in a height of, I think it's bigger, I'm going to go with 110, and a width of 110, and I'm going to save that for a second and come back up and put one of them into our row, so at least we have some clue of what's going on. So let's come in and put in our infostat. And for the icon for the first one, we'll have icons.timer. For the color, we're going to have a sort of purpley color, and that is going to be 0xff 535BED. For the foreground, we're going to have a color, and this is going to be 0xff E4 E7FF. The time is going to be a string, which is +5 seconds. The label is actually going to be the word time, and the value here is going to be 3045. Okay, so we've now got that, and as you can see in our emulator, we've now pushed that up and got some space. Let's come back now to our info and start building this info box out. Sorry, it's at the bottom of this. So we've got this container. What do we want inside as the child? Well, I'm going to lay this out as we've done in past with a stack. And the stack is going to need a few things. It's going to need the icon. So let's put in the icon, and the icon is the icon we've passed in. And we'll come back to the formatting of that after. We're going to need the information about the time, so we're going to put text and pass the time in. We're going to need the text with the label in it, and we're going to need the text with the value in it. I think that's all the data. Right, but it's all a bit squashed up and doesn't look great. So let's go through and fix it. First of all, I'm going to extract each of these, well, some of these as their own separate widgets, just to keep things a little bit less confused. We could do these to separate files, but I am going to just keep them in this one file. So let's come up to the icon and extract this widget, and I'm going to call this one stat icon. Now, because we've passed the icon in, and because we did that already, the refactoring in the VS Code has already set that up for us as a required addition. But we're going to need two other things. We're going to have to pass in, let's set it up down here first of all. We're also going to have to pass in the final color called icon color and the background color. Those are also going to be required, so let's add those in and set those both to be required. And now in our stat icon, we just pass through the icon color as the icon color and the icon background, the background color, sorry, as the, I've called this different names, icon background. Let's rename that. Okay, so I called this should be icon background. So let's just replace that in those three places. So our main widget for this stats is passing that information into our info stats.widget, and our info stats widget is passing that data onto the stats icon widget. Okay, let's format the icon now. So we've got the icon, we'll put a size of 15 there, and the color of the icon is going to be the icon color. Right, now you can sort of see it just below that bundle of text. If you want to see it completely, just comment out these other items here, just for now. So that's fine, but that doesn't have a background. So to put a background, we need to wrap that within a container itself. And that container is going to have a decoration, box decoration. And the color of that is going to be the icon background color. And we also want a radius. Looking at our design, border radius circular 9. Okay, that's looking okay. And then in our container, if we put a padding of const edge inset all 5, I think that probably looks about right. Okay, so that's that icon taken care of. Let's come back up and comment the next bit. And this is the change. So I'm going to, again, I'm going to extract this widget to a widget that I'm going to call change. And we're passing in the time. And looking at the design, that's all we need. So let's come down to our change widget. And here we want to wrap the text, first of all, into an align, because we want to move this. We don't want it sat above the icon that we've got there. And the align takes an alignment, and we're going to move it to alignment dot top right. Excellent, that's taken that over there. We also now need to wrap this into its own decoration container. So we're going to wrap that with a container. And that container is going to have a decoration, box, decoration. And what are we going to put in here? Well, we're going to have a color of colors.green and a border radius of border radius circular. And we'll set that to a large number, 500, and that will ensure that it's always rounded. The font now needs a little bit of formatting, so we'll change the style of that. Text style needs to be smaller, I think about 10, and the color needs to be colors.white. Yeah, now a bit of padding on the container. So coming back up to our container and putting a padding in, fonts, edge, inset, symmetric, and let's do, we don't want much on the vertical, but we do want a bit, so I'm just going to put 1, and horizontal I'm going to put 4. And I think that looks quite close to how we want our design. Okay, let's come back up to our next 2 bits. And these 2 bits, they come together really in a column. So I'm going to create a column with a children, and I'm going to move our 2 text bits up there and uncomment them. Excellent. Now, the column itself needs to be aligned. So let's wrap that with an align widget. And the alignment is going to be alignment dot bottom left. Now, as we frequently experience with columns take up the maximum amount of weight, size that they can, or the height that they can. So we need to make sure that the main axis size is main axis size minimum, and then that is now aligned in the right place. We also want them to be aligned to the start, so cross-axis alignment, cross-axis alignment start. And now we just need to style it, so we'll take the label, and we don't need much here, I don't think. I think we'll just put style, font size 10. I think that's okay. And for the value, bring it into the screen a bit, into the center. We're going to do a style, text style. We're going to have a font size of 16 and a font weight of W800. Yeah, I think that looks okay. Right, I think that's fine. Let's come back up now to our container, because we've got a border that we need to put around this container. So after our height and width, let's put in a decoration, box decoration. And what we're going to want here is to put in a border of borders all, because all the borders are going to be the same, and a color, and the color is going to be the grey that we've been using throughout, which is 0xFF E1 E1 E1. Oops, just add a few commas in there to format that. Okay, that looks fine. We need to put in a border radius. So border radius border radius circular and 15. Hit all the numbers except the right one. I think that looks okay. And then we're going to have to put a little bit of padding in there because at the moment the icons and everything are hitting the edge. So let's come up, put padding const edge inset all, and that can be 8. That moves that in. I think that's great. And then we want to put a bit of a margin around the box, so there's a bit of spacing top and bottom. So after padding we'll put margin, and here we'll do const edge insets symmetric vertical 5. And that just puts a little bit of spacing at the bottom. Now looking at our design, we've also got a bit of a shadow at the bottom. Yeah, so coming below our border, we're going to put in a box shadow, and that's going to be a box shadow with a color of colors black, and I'm going to go with 12 because we want a bit of alpha in there, we don't want it solid black. We need an offset, and I'm just going to move this 3 and 3, and we need a blur radius of 3. Now the box shadows are a list. Box shadows are a list, yeah. So we just need to put square brackets around our box shadow, and even though it's the only one in the list, it's within the list. That's put a shadow. We can see the shadow, but we can also see through our actual container. And the reason we can see through the container is that it itself has no color by default. So in our box decoration, let's come up and put colors.white to ensure that the back of our box has a white background. And that's our info box done. Okay, let's come back up to where we put that info stat in and put in the second 2. So just paste and paste. So for the second one, the icon is going to be favorite outlined. The color for that is going to be 0x FF E11 E6C, and the background for that one 00FF FF E4 FB. According to the design, that's plus 5 seconds, but this is the heart rate, and it's a 151 beats per minute. And the next one, or the final one, is going to be icons, and I've changed the icon to bolt. The color is 0xFF D3 B5 0F. The background color is 0xFF FF B4 BE4. And the label for that one is energy, and the value is 169 kcal. Save that, and we have our 3 widgets. Okay, let's now put a bit of spacing around them all. So in between each of the boxes, I'm going to put a sized box with a width of 15. So there's 2 of those between the 2 boxes. That spaces that. And I also want to make sure there's a space on the left and the right. So our very first child of the row is going to be a size box of 30, and our very last is also going to be a size box of 30. And now we have this thing telling us we've got an overflow on the right. And that's because our scroll box that we've put in here by default is vertical, it's going up and down. So we just need to come up to our single child scroll view, change scroll direction to axis dot horizontal, and now when we save that we can see that it does work. And if we had more boxes it would scroll, or if we had a narrower screen that would work out okay. Finally, we need a little bit of space between the workout stats wording and the bottom of the screen as well. Let's come back up to our details.dart, and where we have our stats we're going to put in, first of all, at the very bottom underneath the stats, size box, height of 30. That takes care of the sizing at the bottom. And at the top, we want to do a size box, again, height of 30. That's looking all right. The wording workout stats needs to move a little bit. So if we come back to our stats and find the wording workout stats, let's take this whole row and wrap that row with a padding and change all to symmetric, and we're going to change that to horizontal 30 as well. Yeah, that moves everything to look a little bit better. And that is the design of the app almost complete. No, it's not. I'm just looking at the design, and we've got this divider bar. Well, that's easy enough. Where we've got this size box height 30 in between the info and the stats, just change that to divider, and that will put that divider line in for us. Yeah, that's all good. So at the bottom here we've got a problems. Let's just, I've got a duplicate import apparently. Not sure why that's happened, but let's clean that up. And if we come back to our analysis options YAML file, we put these preferred const constructors things in before. Let's comment those out now, and we will probably get a load of warnings, yeah, telling us that we should have used consts in quite a few files. So all we're going to do is go through them once by one and fix them. So let's look at these. The first one here is this text theme. Well, it's basically saying that there's no variables in this text theme. It's always going to be the same. That's probably going to be the same issue throughout. So the quickest way to do that is to refactor and go to where it says add const modifiers everywhere in file. Now it's yeah, then it's added a const to the next line, and actually it's now telling us it doesn't need it there. So this is a little bit of a fiddly job to go through and fix all this. But if I close down all the files, we can just click on the error and it opens it up. So here again, the assets should always be constant. It's never going to change. There's no variable allowing it to change. That's those two fixed. So I'm going to work my way through all of these. Some of them are easier than others because all of these are const. We could put const in front of each one, but it's actually easier to just put them in the front of the list, and that fixes them all in one go. So there's going to be quite a few like this. So I'm going to go through and fix all these up, and then I won't make you watch that. I'll be back. And the last one. There we go. So that's all our linting taken care of and back out. I'm going to do a hard refresh and come back to our main.dart where we changed our initial route to details. We're going to take that out now and refresh our app. So we should now go back to our main page, and any one of these swimming, hiking, cycling should take us to our activity page, but our back button doesn't take us back. So let's come back to our app bar, find the icon, and where we've got the on pressed, we want to put navigator of context pop, which means we want to go back. Now we've got those two working, we need to come back to our bottom navigation bar, and where we put in the functions to navigate previously, we're just going to comment them out because that was really for testing and allowing us to get from one page to the other quickly. One more hot restart of the app, and now we should be able to get to our pages and go back, and it looks great. So folks, I think that's this app wrapped up. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you've got something out of it. We've looked at the custom painters to, some depth. We've looked at different ways of doing various things, and I'll be back soon with a new app. And my intention is the next one is going to be a fully, properly working app with a back end as well of some description, probably using Google Firebase, and we'll get something actually working and something that could be worked on a bit further, but essentially made production ready. So until then, folks, take care. If you've enjoyed, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and hit the notification icon to make sure you don't miss out on the next one. I'll see you soon. Take care now. Bye bye.